What she did, though... Sorry, hold on. What did my notes here say? I'm confused. Okay. Cool. Okay. Delete that out so I can know the show's on. Seattle, Washington, what is good? Woo. It is a delight to be here once again in my semi-kind of hometown. I lived 2 years, but it was really formative, so it feels like longer than 2 years here. It is a delight to be back. Thank you all so much for coming out and packing the house. This is fun. We've got a fun crowd here. I see we've packed every seat except for the very front row, because I'm very scary. But we are here to break down some very pivotal chapters in The Lost Hero. It's going to be a very exciting time. Our first TNO-only show doing The Lost Hero and none of that other Harry Potter garbage in the second act. So let's get right into it because we have some fun things to discuss. Obviously, I'm never on this journey alone. I'm joined today by someone who is a wonderful longtime friend of mine. You may know him from his appearances on this podcast or our work together in A Tribe Called Yes or other improv things in Seattle, or you might know him as the guy who went to my University of Washington project management graduation ceremony because I got a +1 and I knew there would be free food and I had no one else to take because Kelly and I were long distance at the time. So he came with me as my +1 to my graduation ceremony. Please make some noise for our guest, Nathan Cox! Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Great to see you again. For those of you who I've already seen, which I'm sure is some of you. How many of you have been to a Mike Schubert live show here in Seattle before? First time? So cool. Then most of you don't know me. That's great.
Yes. So what we're going to be talking about today are chapters 25 and 26 of The Lost Hero, which are both called Jason, weirdly enough, but we will retitle them. Why don't you tell the folks your history with the Heroes of Olympus books as a whole, The Lost Hero specifically?
Sure. So I read overall the Percy Jackson series, the original 5 books. I read those just in January and February, all 5 of them, to prepare very quickly to be on the show because I love Mike and I love being on his shows and I love what he does. And so I read those books very rapidly. And I was going to be on 2 episodes, one in Seattle and one in Vancouver. And I read up to the point where Mike was at. So for the first episode, I knew exactly what he knew, which is what I've done today for this book. So we are in the same spot. I cannot spoil him. I literally cannot
Didn't have to install a trap door on the stage today.
That's right.
Easy and makes
However,
easier on the venue.
Between now and Monday, I will finish the book and I will be able to gloat and lord it over him and also be very terrified about accidentally spoiling something about the end of this book. So he can be jealous of me because I will suddenly have a lot of knowledge about what exactly is going to happen next.
Well,
but today we're equal.
We're on the same page.
Yeah.
And that page is whatever page number it is. I didn't write that down well enough, but... We're here in chapter 25. Now, where we last left our heroes, we had the very cool fight scene that was going on in Monocle Motors, where they were taking down the Cyclopes, and then they started to reform, so they said, oh, let's get out of here. So, chapter 25 begins, first 2 words, Jason dreamed, and I wrote, let's freaking go! Love a dream chapter. I was very excited. And then I wrote my notes, oh, right, he's passed out. So I had, forgotten that was part of the equation at this point. But I was very excited to get some Jason dreams in the mix.
Yeah, I don't fully understand I know dreams happen all the time for demigods, but it's unclear to me what things exactly trigger them to happen. This one is pretty normal. You're asleep. It's a good time to be dreaming.
Right.
Whereas other times, sometimes people are awake and they just accidentally pass into a dream. But this one, I felt the same as you did. I was like, cool, starting with a dream, that means it's going to be a big deal.
Yes, I was excited, especially because I feel like we haven't had a Jason dream in a minute. Like, I feel like the last one was the big house, which is a lot of chapters ago. So he dreams, it continues the opening line. It says, Jason dreams dreamed he was wrapped in chains, hanging upside down like a hunk of meat. And I wrote, wait, isn't that exactly what's already happening? This doesn't feel like a dream. This feels like real life. And it's an interesting situation because he's in copious amounts of pain. So he wonders aloud, if I'm dead, how can it hurt this much? And then a woman's voice, and I wrote, anytime it's just someone's voice, nondescript, it's always confusing. But a woman's voice informs him that he is not dead, for it is not yet his time, and then calls for Jason to speak with her. And I was like, ooh, this feels like Hera to me.
Yeah, I mean, there's pretty much one of two options. There's Hera and Dirt Woman.
Yes, Dirt Woman. Capital D, capital W.
That's right.
So what's interesting is that Jason can hear everything that's going on with Piper and Leo and the fight and all of that, but it feels like it's in a different plane. It's happening in a different plane of existence than where he currently is. And his thoughts sort of travel elsewhere. So he finds himself in an earthy, tendril-themed cage. And then I wrote, okay, either he's talking to Hera or this is bad news, thinking for a second his aura or something is in the other cage. I didn't know if it was going to be this weird thing where we just get like lifeless dummy Jason and, you know, his soul's been removed or whatever, but it just seems like he's talking to Hera in a dream.
But hanging upside down in the cage?
Ooh.
Unclear if that's in both planes of existence or not.
In my interpretation of it, I thought he was feeling the upside down and the pain and everything. And then when his thoughts left his body, he was back into normal mode.
Okay.
If you thought Jason was hanging upside down, make some noise. Ooh, okay. You've got some folks.
Well, which for me, I'm like, look, the fact that there's room for both of them, but also if he's hanging upside down, like that's a big cage and not so constrictive. Like she's got some space in there to like relax. In my mind, I'm picturing the cage from the Sia, Shia LaBeouf, Maddie Ziegler music video. Elastic Heart, that's the one. That's the cage I'm picturing, though. That was exitable easily, not the case for Hera.
Right, yeah. I'm also just trying to think of the logistics of having a conversation upside down, like having to look and talk. I feel like it'd be a lot of strain on the neck.
Yeah.
So I will stop doing it because I do have to talk for the next 2 hours.
So he is in this cage with Hera, and it's the cage from his previous dream in the same location and everything. Next to him is Hera, who welcomes him to her prison. She tells Jason that he will not die today, as his friends will prevail. And then she says, for now, which you never want to hear. Jason doesn't love the for now. Hera says that tougher trials lie ahead, since the literal earth opposes them. Not someone you want to make as your enemy.
No.
And I feel like at this point, it was pretty clear that the bad guy is Gaia, because you earlier when reading didn't have that. When did it sort of clicked in a couple chapters prior to this?
Yeah, it was like there was like an earthy reference, and there was like plant matter and rocks, and I'm just like, oh, it literally Earth, Mother Earth. It's got to be Gaia. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Either we're on the same page and we're feeling great, or we're on the same page and it's Juniper Round 2, Twoniper, the sequel. So Jason asks why she can't just escape if she's a goddess. And then she shows him by doing a nuclear explosion of sorts, and it doesn't destroy the cage. It just makes her look more tired. So very much actions speak louder than words. Hera really trying to live up to the comment section of TikToks about the Percy Jackson TV series and showing, not telling.
Yeah, that's a wild way to learn that a god has nuclear bomb powers.
Yeah.
And also, like, when they, in the prophecy, when they previously had been talking about, like, Hera's rage, I'm like, oh, that's it.
Yeah.
It's the fact that she can be a nuclear bomb at any given time. Which then made me wonder, is Robert Oppenheimer a demigod? Because Barbie is definitely a demigod, House Aphrodite,
of course.
which means that Barbenheimer is a full god.
Ooh, yeah. See, my line of thinking was more of where's Hera's nuclear bomb power up in Hades 2?
That's true.
She does have some good attacks, though.
I would select that boon for sure. Yeah.
So Hera explains that some powers outrank those of the gods, and though she can be many places at once, when the majority of her essence is caught, it's like a foot in a bear trap. She says that only Jason can find her, and she grows weaker with each passing day. Jason asks her how she got caught in the first place. Hera says that she could not stay idle as his father, Jupiter. So I think first time she has ever referred to Zeus as Jupiter, but then we'll see throughout this conversation, she kind of flips back and forth between the two.
Yeah, it's like, is that like when she's like super mad at him? It's like calling calling someone by their full name.
Oh, it's like, when your parent gives you the Michael Joel Schubert.
And canonically mad at Zeus/Jupiter all the time.
Yeah,
So
true. Maybe he's just always Jupiter.
Yeah.
But yes, she says that she couldn't stay idle while Jupiter withdrew from the world to try and lull their enemies back to sleep. Apparently, Jupiter believed that the Olympians had become too entangled in mortal affairs, and especially too entangled in demigod affairs, after agreeing to claim them all. And I gotta remind Zeus of this. You gave Percy carte blanche. You said, I will grant any wish. And then he had a wish. And then you're like, are you sure? Maybe, you know me. Good joke. No, you said anything. You got to do it, man.
Are you sure you don't want a PS5, Percy?
Oh, Percy. Are you, come on. What about courtside Knicks tickets?
I did find it also interesting with like her referring to him as like Jupiter. I can't quite tell. It seems to me like Jason is having this effect on others, like as if it's almost outside of their will that they're using Roman terminology. I don't know what that's all about. I'm clueless.
No. I like it because it's a specific thing, and it would make sense because she says, I'm not just Hera, I'm also Juno. So she's got it inside. It's like when people grew up in a city or state that has an accent, they go off into the world, they kind of lose that accent, then they come back to that state, and then they start talking way more like that accent.
Forced code switching.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think that's what it is. It's like when you're Texan and then you go back to Texas, and then after a week in Texas, you start talking a little bit more like this.
Yeah.
And then you have to like get it out of there.
And I mean, more or less, Jason is the WWE because he won't stop forcing Roman on other people.
Nice. I know just enough about wrestling to get this reference.
That's for the one person in the room who's a wrestling fan. Thank you.
So, anyway, Percy Jackson. Now, Hera says that Zeus thinks that claiming, all of this increased amount of claiming, caused their enemies to stir, so he closed Olympus. Hera says that she rarely understands Zeus, specifically says Zeus this time, Zeus's emotions and decisions, but this felt too paranoid even for him. So kind of begging the question of, is there something else afoot? Which feels like yes, because there were two separate lines where Hera was saying, I don't know, this felt a little bit weird. And that feels like maybe there is something weird. So she says the following, quote, as Hera, I might have been content to follow my lord's wishes, but I am also Juno. Juno Moneta, they called me. Juno, the one who warns.
Juno, pregnant teenager and keeper of the hamburger phone.
That was my joke. Nice. I was going to say, I recently watched that movie. Holds up. It's great. It's really fun. It's fun. When Kelly was like very, very pregnant, she was like, we should watch Juno. And it was a great time. And I bawled my eyes out multiple times. I would say the only inaccurate thing, the delivery pregnancy scene, quite glamorous.
Well, let the record show we get equal credit for that joke.
Ka-ching. So she didn't want to sit idly by as the descendants of her Roman people were attacked. The book said this whole thing about her being the protector of Rome, blah, blah, blah. And she sensed danger in this sacred spot and listened to a voice in her head that told her to come here. And that spooked her because gods don't have consciences, but this voice was something similar to that. She just had this instinctual feeling, so she came here to investigate on the day that Zeus closed Olympus. And I don't know. I mean, I've postulated that this place is some sort of Roman safe ground, especially because Jason feels like it has a tie to him. It's like the opposite of Camp Half-Blood, where he felt like I'm not supposed to be here. So I wonder if the history of this location, it's a torn down mansion.
Yeah.
I have theorized, Latin camp, that was the previous big house, and that's where we're at.
I have further thoughts on this, but I'm going to save it for the next chapter because it's connected to something that we learn a little bit later.
Intertwined.
But I do like the fact that like Hera Juno's done a lot of like self-reflection in her cage. Like she's been asking herself questions. And like, do gods really have that opportunity very often? Aren't they super busy most of the time? Ooh. And like, maybe it wasn't just her. Maybe she had like decent reception where she is and she did like a telehealth Zoom call with a therapist.
It's like when I walk to the grocery store and I forgot to charge my headphones so they die on the walk home and I have to be alone in my thoughts.
The worst.
Sometimes productive, other times, no. I've thought about that awkward thing I said once in second grade.
If you think about it, your job is keeping other people from being alone with their thoughts.
Look. It is a joke that I will make to other podcasters, especially during COVID times when people would talk about like the importance of jobs. I would be like, folks, sometimes people get bored at airports, and we are here for them. So Jason thinks it was a trap. Hera agrees and calls herself even more impulsive than Jupiter, this time Jupiter. She said that it's similar to the last time she was captured. That time it was done by giants, and it started a war. So I got to check in with Dr. Moya. It will get referenced later in these chapters that we're covering, but I still want to ask her about it. And then we get this quote: "The gods can only defeat them with the help of the greatest living heroes, and the one whom the giants serve, ... she, in italics, cannot be defeated at all, only kept asleep." So, sounds very daunting.
Yeah.
Jason says he doesn't understand. Hera says that he soon will, and I wrote, yeah, in 9 chapters or so, next time he's the narrator around. The cage tightens, and then humanoids gather at the edge of the pool. They have more than one set of arms, which is terrifying.
Yeah, they're described as bald-headed, lumbering, hunched-back humanoids, and as a member of that class of being, I don't appreciate the inference.
For the folks listening at home, Nathan dramatically removed his hat.
Yeah.
To reveal the truth.
A bald head and a 6'4" frame.
So they have an additional set of arms, scary. Then Jason also hears wolves, but he can tell that they are more aggressive and bloodthirsty as opposed to the ones that he heard with Lupa, so that's not great. Hera warns Jason to hurry, saying that her keepers approach, and he is beginning to wake. She says that she will not be strong enough to appear to Jason again, even in dreams. And Jason very smartly tries to get in some questions really quickly before she goes away. He's like, "Hey, Boreas said something about a gamble that you made. What's that gamble? Could you please tell me about it?" And Hera's eyes look wild, which worries Jason that Boreas was right. And Hera explains that it is an exchange, and it is the only way to bring peace. Quote, "The enemy counts on our divisions, and if we are divided, we will, in italics, be destroyed. You are my peace offering, Jason, a bridge to overcome a millennia of hatred." And I don't like the sound of that, because I feel like peace offerings, it's not like they are treated well afterwards.
No, and oftentimes an offering is consumed and no longer exists after the fact.
So I don't like that. Jason doesn't like the sound of it either. Hera says that she cannot tell him more. Chiron nods in the distance. And Hera says that he has only lived this long because she took his memory and commands him to find this place. And I just wrote my notes in all caps. What does that mean? And later on, I don't know if it's in this chapter or in the next one, but later on, Jason's like, "What are you talking about? How is removing my memories keeping me alive? That doesn't make any sense."
Yeah, I don't fully understand. I mean, and the idea of like bridging like two sides, I'm just like, what do we know so far that could be juxtaposed sides? We've got giants and gods, potentially. Mm-hmm. We have Romans and Greeks. They keep on playing with that
That's
thing.
where I'm at.
Which I honestly need to go back and read how things went from ancient Greece to ancient Rome. I know like they're geographically different places, kind of. I mean, Rome eventually became everything. I'm almost 40, Roman Empire. But what is it about him specifically? It doesn't feel like it fits to the gods, giants things, but it feels like it could fit between the Greeks and Romans things. But like, I don't really understand. Like, I'm not sure what he would do. Yeah. It's not like they can't necessarily speak each other's languages and he's going to be an interpreter. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm in the dark. How do you feel about?
I feel like there is clearly some sort of Jason history that's important. And I think that my original theory of him being a reincarnated old guy, that was my original theory, if you haven't been listening to the New Olympian, okay. Is that, or if any, who here is like dragged along to the show that has no idea what's going on? All right, only a couple. I always try to make sure everyone has a good time, so don't worry, I'm here for you. I had this theory that Jason was maybe old school from maybe like Jason and the Argonauts Jason, and then Hera brought him back to life for this new task. I don't think that is what's happening, but I do feel like he has some sort of important history, maybe, probably linked to the destruction of whatever is here in this area. Like whatever happened with the destruction of this mansion, I feel like Jason was either there or responsible, or someone did it because of him. Okay. Maybe like a, chosen one type of thing, like when you time travel in Looper to try to do the thing to stop the thing, or Terminator, like stuff like that, where it's like, this is important, like, because there is a world in which he was just like really young and this happened, right? Or it could have been like where he froze in time. Maybe he was like this age, and then something happened and he was put on ice and he came back. Like, I just feel like there is something where he was a pivotal portion, and that's why the offering of him specifically makes the difference. Maybe he did something bad and it was like, if I give you over to the Titans, it will be revenge, or like you have this innate power. I had to hide the memory because you can, spirit bomb or whatever. Like, I feel like there is a reason it's Jason, and I think it is a specific reason of the memories. And with her saying, I have gotten rid of your memories to keep you alive, I think it's either one of two things. But what I'm leaning towards is maybe like if he knew what happened in the past, maybe he wouldn't want to go along with it. Like maybe he was a part of something so bad, or it's like a Harry Potter sacrifice to Voldemort thing. Like, oh, if I take me out, I can end the suffering kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like, I wonder if it's like almost a self-aware knowledge of the danger and destruction he could bring about if he knew his full self.
I feel like it could be that he's like afraid of like the danger or destruction that he could cause, or maybe he would be so one-sided that right now he's like working to create this peace between two sides, it feels like. But if like he gets his memories back and he hates a particular faction, then maybe he'd be like, I'm not doing that shit. Because like I agree, like he could be like reincarnated or frozen in time, or like I was like, oh, is he actually part of Jason and the Argonauts or whatever? I don't know. Again, I haven't done enough research on Jason and the Argonauts, but I did think if he is frozen in time, what are the odds and how awkward would it be if he is eventually in a similar outfit to the one from her dad's movie poster? Because if he was a Roman soldier and he's like greased up and helmeted and like tiny shorts, it could get real weird because she hates that poster.
That's going to be a lot to unpack, Piper. Damn.
I don't think it's going to happen, but look.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's either like a self-awareness thing, or like if he knew the truth, maybe like Hera did something to him or the Greeks did something and he would either want revenge or like wouldn't go along with it. Yeah, like he would choose a side. So we'll see. Sure. But we'll get back to the story here. Now, if what Hera has been saying wasn't ominous enough, she ramps it up, because here are her final two lines, which Jason tries to ask about, and she just bulldozes over him. So she says, first, return to your starting point. Your sister will help. So that feels like this camp here in Thali is coming in the mix. And then her second quote is, beware Chicago. Your most dangerous mortal enemy waits there. If you are to die, it will be by her hand.
Clearly, Hera watches Fox News. Which I don't like. Chicago's a very lovely place. I've been there many times.
It's a good town.
But yeah, everything got super rushed there at the end. And I was really fixated on the fact that it said your most dangerous mortal enemy.
Yeah.
So like gods are immortal. Yes,
They're
right?
Immortal.
Yeah.
Yes.
Demigods are not.
I think, yes, they would count as mortal. So my guess is evil demigod in Chicago.
Okay, but monsters are immortal.
Yes, that's how I would view it. And I think the specific reason she said you're tough as a mortal thing is that she knows Gaia, or whoever is the big bad of this series, is going to be the biggest threat. So it's this weird qualification of like, it's the hardest, not Gaia, you're going to face,
I see. But the dungeon boss. I understand.
Before the act break in the video game boss. Yeah.
Got it.
So Hera fades, Jason wakes, and he wakes yelling, Cyclops! And Piper calms him down. And they're riding on Festus, which is good news. It means they fixed Festus. Jason is confused, and Leo explains that they escaped and that Jason had a nasty concussion, and they should go to a doctor because he was asleep, and you're not supposed to sleep after a concussion.
Asleep and hanging upside down while having a concussion.
No way, that's good.
No.
Way.
It already is like a concern of swelling of the brain, and nothing's going to cause more swelling of the brain than being upside down.
Come on. Go to a doctor.
Oh, we'll just give him some baked goods and he'll be all right.
Call Will Solace. Get him here. Leo asks how he's feeling. Jason says, I just had a concussion. Jason recalls getting punched out by the Cyclops and then it fading to black and that being it. He asks how they defeated the Cyclopes, or I guess he might have just said singular Cyclops because he didn't even know that there were multiple. Piper says that Leo tore them apart and reveals, Leo has fire powers, by the way. Leo shrugs it off as not being a big deal, and Piper goes, it's a super big deal, and then tells a very detailed version of the story. So I think that's very fun. And the key new information that we get, since there was a bit of a time jump, is that Leo replaced Festus Hephaestus's wiring and got the crew flying just as the Cyclopes reformed. So just as they were whole from the dust and yelling at them, they got out of there. And Jason is impressed with Leo, but he does feel foolish for stepping into an ambush and not being able to help at all. He thinks that he is a trash quest leader. And he also feels bad about not remembering who that son of Mercury that the Cyclopes claimed to have eaten was, because one of Piper or Leo said something like, oh, they said this thing about eating a guy in a purple shirt, kind of like you in the Latin camp, blah, blah, blah. And Jason's like, man, I feel like I should know who this person is, and I feel really bad that I don't.
Mercury is Hermes, yes?
Correct.
Do we know any other sons of Hermes from the books besides Luke?
Chris Rodriguez, or at least he was in the cabin. I don't know if he was unclaimed or not.
Okay.
But no, I don't think it would be anyone we know. I feel like it would
I see.
probably be off-named person, but it's at least... Jason just has this feeling like he should know them. Maybe that means that whatever the Latin camp is, maybe there's not a lot of people there, so it's a tight-knit group.
Which again leads me towards like this being like, again, like a crew. Maybe the Argonauts? I don't know. But like normally you're just like, oh, a Roman. I should have known who the Roman was. Like you don't know everybody who dresses in the same uniform that you do necessarily. But I don't know why Rick would write that if it weren't eventually someone that he would actually know.
Oh, interesting.
Because why include that detail?
I think you include the detail just to let people know, like, it's not just a Zeus camp or a Jupiter camp, even
Okay.
though, spoiler alert, I know the name of the camp. But I would at least think that was just sort of a sprinkle to say there's some other people, and it kind of at least gives you the eye-opening of, oh, so maybe it's a whole, like, Camp Half-Blood, but just Roman version. So there, it at least expands it to, it's not just Jason, it's not just his weird purple shirt. It is multiple people with purple shirts.
Okay.
Purple's a great color. I got nothing against purple.
Also, in this moment, the piece of information you just gave me, I am a little spoiled, but I also don't fully know what you mean. So my brain is running in circles right now, being like, wait a minute.
Yeah, there was like a fandom thing that just like seeped into
Cool.
zeitgeist.
We'll give it 4 days and I'll know everything.
Yeah, I was gonna say. So he does take solace in knowing that he's not alone. Piper says that he was never alone because he has them. And Jason is still shaken from his dream. He shares it with the others. Piper is confused by the exchange that he had with Hera. Jason says, I don't know either, but he's convinced that he is the gamble and thinks that simply sending him to Camp Half-Blood might have been enough to break some sort of rule and kick things into gear, just based off that instinctual feeling where he just felt like, I am not supposed to be here. So maybe this will kick off a Greek versus Roman thing. I don't know. Piper thinks it could be the way that they save everyone, though, and she thinks that the sleeping enemy sounds like the lady that Leo described, the Dirt Woman. So at this, Leo reveals, oh, by the way, everyone, I did see her again, but this time she was porta potty juice, so slightly different. And he's not sure if she truly cannot be killed, like Hera said, but he does know for certain that you can't defeat her with a toilet seat, because he tried that and it didn't work. So, helpful to know.
Yeah.
Helpful to know some knowledge.
Leo eternally making do with the things he has on hand.
He's very crafty. He's very handy. You got to work with the tools you have. Mm-hmm. Leo adds that she wanted him to betray them, but he refused. Piper thinks that she's trying to divide them and is worried that they are being toyed with. And she starts thinking, why are we being toyed with? And then she wonders, how does this woman connect to enchiladas or enchiladas? I haven't talked to Dr. Moy yet about how to pronounce it. And she says that out loud, and Jason goes, enchiladas? And she's like, oh, shoot, oh no, I wasn't supposed to say that. So Piper tries to quick pivot save to go, oh, I think that's one of the names of the giants that I remember, but I'm not sure. It's just like a random name. And we get this quote from the narrator. Jason got the feeling there was a lot more bothering her, but he decided not to press her. She'd had a rough morning.
That has happened several times now where he's like, well, something else. All of them are being like, well, something else is going on, but I'm just not going to talk about it. This is like, as much as they care about each other, this is a toxic relationship. If you're like, my friend's not doing well, they're struggling, but I'm just going to let them struggle.
Yeah. I feel like for me, this is one of those, it's a book things. Like you gotta.
Sure, you can't just get everything out in the open right
You
away.
gotta just let it happen and you gotta laugh it off. But I like that he's being a good dude and trying to factor in her emotions, especially because they have the very complex sort of, we were kind of dating, but not really, blah, blah, blah. But then we get a great interjection from Leo where he goes, quote, well, I don't know about enchiladas.
And I'm like, you're from North Houston. You know about enchiladas.
You have opinions about enchiladas. But I was just so happy because, as people know, in an earlier episode of the News Olympian, I was waiting for someone to make an enchiladas joke. I thought it would be Grover. Glad it was Leo. Leo would have been my secondary vote.
A very good friend of mine has a poster in his house that I hang out in occasionally that has like imaginary space travel posters about different like interstellar locations. And evidently Enceladus or Enceladus is a moon, I think in like Jupiter or Saturn. And so it says like visit Enceladus. And every single time I look at it and just go enchiladas. So I very much felt like Leo when I got to that part of the book. I felt very validated. Yeah.
I'm very excited to talk with Dr. Moya about the, whatever we learn about all these folks like Gaia, the Titans, the Giants, all that kind of stuff. I want to know how many there are and if it makes sense for Enceladus to be the one that seems to be the main one. I know Gaia mentioned the other one, Porphyrion, whatever.
Porpoisephere.
Yep, Porpoisephere. We'll get to.
I'm getting ahead of us.
We'll get to Porpoisephere soon. But I wonder if this was someone who was like the most important one according to the mythology, or if there's a bunch of sons of Gaia and Rick saw the list and was like, one sounds like enchiladas. I should make him the most important one, clearly.
As two, we're both improvisers. We know the value of a callback.
Yeah.
It's important.
It's just good, especially when you're doing a book like this and it doesn't really matter which Titan. Like, yeah, you pick the one with the coolest name. Yeah. Obviously. So Leo says, well, I don't know about enchiladas. And Piper goes, enchiladas. And he goes, whatever. But old Potty Face mentioned another name, Porpoisephere or something. What a run of dialogue from Leo. Just banger after banger. Piper corrects to Porphyrion. He was the giant king. I think, to really throw in another thing, but I don't think she actually heard that one, so it's a legitimate, I think. Jason guesses that he is the one that kidnapped Hera. Thankfully, Hera brought this up 5 sentences ago. He thinks that that's the one who kidnapped Hera, which kicked off the war between the giants and the gods. Piper confirms, but says that those stories are messy and they can be inconsistent in their retellings, almost as if no one wanted the story to survive. She says the main takeaway, though, is that the giants were almost impossible to kill. Jason says Hera told him that heroes and gods had to work together. And that could be really fun in one of the later books in the series, or even in this one, if we get something where truly the demigods and the gods are fighting side by side. Because in the Percy Jackson books, we sort of got the side by side, but the sides were very far apart because they were off fighting Typhon, and then the demigods were out defeating Luke and doing all this stuff like on Olympus. But there was very few things where they were literally going together like in the same battle. And I don't think that there was one really. I think it's always kind of like separated. So to truly have like a get in here and we're all fighting at the same time scene, I think that could be really fun.
Yeah, I hope we get it.
I hope we do too. I hope we do too. So Leo says that working together would be hard given that the gods won't talk to them currently. Does feel like a barrier to entry. So then they decide to continue west. Jason is lost in his thoughts. He's just down bad. He's worrying about everything. He's freaking out about what Hera said. He's freaking out about Piper stuff. He feels bad about what happened at Monocle Motors. He's not in a good situation. Then they arrive at Chicago. And Leo asks, how do we find the storm spirits? And then Jason sees what he thinks is a plane, but then it turns into a smoky horse. So he goes, why don't we just follow that one? And that's the end of chapter 25. I have a fun little title for it. I wrote, I Dream of Queenie, because he dreams of Hera.
Okay, yeah, that's...
So there's this old show on Nick at Night called...
For me, maybe just a simple La Cage à Foie, the Birdcage. I think I pronounced that incorrectly or whatever. But then in my mind, I'm picturing Hera and Jason being played by Robin Williams and Nathan Lane.
Correct.
But Nathan Lane in drag is Hera, which I would pay money to see.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, we're good. I like it.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get into the beginning of chapter 26 before we break for intermission. This one, also called Jason, but this one starts. Jason was afraid they'd lose their target. The Ventus moved like, well, the wind. It's great. Uncle Rick is just hitting. They have a bit of a contentious time trying to follow the wind spirit because Leo is driving and then Jason is saying you got to get closer. Piper's saying, no, you can't stay too close. You got to be inconspicuous. Then Festus runs into a building. That's never good.
Basically, this is me trying to complete a mission in GTA, Grand Theft Auto. I got spotted. I ran into a building.
The y-axis is inverted.
I've got 3 stars. The Titans are after me. No.
So they have this contentious time, but they are able to stay undetected, and then they are close enough to do so. And eventually, they do see that there are 2 Venti, not just one Ventus, and they are zipping around. They're going all up and down buildings and stuff. I'm very curious as to what the residents of Chicago would think that these things are. Maybe like really big birds or something?
Sure. But like, when you picture them in your brain, all I picture is, not to purposefully loop it back, but I picture Peeves from the Harry Potter movies.
Okay.
That's what I think of.
Of the Venti?
Yeah, or maybe like Slimer from Ghostbusters. Like, I'm just kind of picturing like a kind of see-through but strangely corporeal. Like, it's...
Yeah.
Do they have faces, you think?
To me, it's almost like, again, it's like the movie Death Eaters who like poof into smoke, which I hated because they can fly and it ruined the whole thing of Voldemort being able to fly. But in my brain, it was like when they're flying, in my eyes, they're just like a moving cyclone kind of thing moving around.
Oh, got it.
And they don't really have a face and stuff. But then when they stop, the spinning stops and then they take more of like a humanoid, kind of like wispy sort of view.
They're the Roto-Rooter logo.
Ooh. I like
Google it during the break. You'll know what I'm talking about.
I was thinking more of there was a fair amount of, I played travel baseball growing up in New Jersey, and there was like a couple of things that, I don't know if anyone has this sports thing, but like there's certain things where like a lot of teams would be the same thing. And because I don't know if it's like the time order, there are a lot of like cyclones and twisters and hurricanes. Like a lot of teams were like, what's scary? Oh, the big wind that spins around. Like, I guess because at that point, like everyone's dad on the team was in their like late 30s. So they loved the movie Twister. So they were like, yeah. I feel like I played a lot of hurricane-based, twister-based baseball teams growing up in New Jersey. And it was all like an angry eyes just over a spinny thing. And it had like arms and legs sticking out and a glove and a bat. Like it's like that without the glove and the bat.
Yeah,
I'm seeing.
They are always like a little bit scary. Like I played on the Ballard Wasps and the Ferndale Red Lions, but like really you should be like a member of like the Scranton Social Security Insolvency. Like
Yes. Okay, we need more scary things that are just like existential dread.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's get the West Seattle. My friends are hanging out without me and saying mean things about me.
Yeah. The Alabama Alone with My Thoughts.
That'd be good.
Being in Alabama is scary enough. Sorry to all the listeners in Alabama.
They don't know how to work phones. Okay. Not you. You know how.
Doubling down. I love it.
Why was how do you know that the toothbrush was invented in Alabama?
How's that?
Otherwise, it would have been a teeth brush. I lived in Texas. There's a lot of Alabama jokes. Don't make me get into Louisiana territory. So, Leo then points out another dozen hanging out near a public art installation near a lake. And I wrote the bean.
I also wrote the bean. I wrote not the bean.
My Chicago knowledge is so limited because I've only been to Chicago for a wedding, tours, and then LeakyCon, but I was there early enough so I got to go to Lollapalooza and I saw New Jeans, which was amazing, and then Rae Jepsen, which changed my life. You gotta see her. Her Lollapalooza set is on YouTube, but you gotta see her.
Do you know the actual name of the bean?
It has a full name?
Yeah, that's not called the bean.
Okay. Yeah, what is it? Because I have a bean story after.
Does anyone here know it?
Okay, striped sweater. What is it?
That's correct. It's the Cloudgate. Yes.
Why is it the Cloudgate?
I mean, in my
5
mind,
bonus points to you.
maybe because it like reflects the sky in it, and it's like a gateway to the clouds. But honestly, I don't know why. But I didn't also know it was called the Cloudgate.
Here's a silly like almost immediately, I regret saying it out loud because I realized it 2 seconds later, thought I was scrolling Twitter and it had a thing that said like, the Bean has reopened. And I out loud, and Kelly was sitting across, I was like, you can go in the Bean?
It's actually the flight of the Navigator ship.
It's Spaceship Bean. Yeah. No, but I said that and then immediately I was like, oh, it was probably like the park surrounding the Bean was closed for repairs. And Kelly said that before I got there. You should, I would imagine can you go, can you go in the Bean?
Yeah, I do not think you can go in the Bean. Also, I just realized I should say yet again, if you don't know what Flight of the Navigator is during the break, because I'm looking at the faces of some of the people in the audience and I'm like,
what is it? I knew Spaceship Earth. I was making an Epcot Ball reference.
Oh, Flight of the Navigator is a Disney movie from like 1982 where a child gets inside of a spaceship and the robot who operates it, he's the navigator, but the spaceship is like, it has an AI robotic pilot and they fly everywhere in a chrome Nerf football. But the best part of the movie is it opens with a series of dogs catching frisbees in slow motion in a park. It has nothing to do with the rest of the movie. But it is like, it's basically YouTube videos and TikTok before that existed. All I want to do is just watch these cute dogs catching frisbees. For that alone, worth watching the movie.
Amazing. Anyway, Percy Jackson. So it's not the Bean. But I did find it weird that if they're going to say a public art installation but not describe it, I was like, that's strange. And then they describe it like 2 sentences later. Leo asks which one is Dylan so he can throw something at him, which we've seen work, so valid. And then we get a little bit of a description of this thing. So Jason focuses on the art and he's unnerved. It's just a public fountain, but it's eerily familiar. Describing it, he says, quote, 2 5-story monoliths rose from either end of a long granite reflecting pool. The monoliths seem to be built of video screens flashing the combined image of a giant face that spewed water into the pool. Maybe it was just a coincidence, but it looked like a high-tech, supersized version of that ruined reflecting pool he'd seen in his dreams, with those 2 dark masses jutting from either end. As Jason watched, the image on the screens changed to a woman's face with her eyes closed. So, feels very Gaia, scary situation coded. I was wondering at first, is this a real thing? But then because it was such a mimic of the other thing, it feels like specifically just for the story.
Do you know that art installation?
I don't. I've only been to Grant Park for Lollapalooza, so I wasn't really in art mode.
It's basically right next to the Bean / Cloudgate. It's exactly what they describe. It's different people's faces, but there is strangely like a stream of water coming out that looks like they're just
and it is like TV
it's exactly what they describe.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so it actually exists. I didn't realize it had been around since like 2010, but yeah, it's a real thing you can see in Chicago.
Interesting.
But what I was like, I feel like there have been several times now where we have gotten the imagery of like a pool with 2 like either
tall
like
things, the cages.
Yeah, spires or whatever on either side. And this was, I had a moment where he was like, oh, then I had like the vision and I remembered it and it was connected to like being with Hera. And then I thought to myself, if we've already had this like desolated, things are kind of like rocky or whatever or messed up, and it's the same thing where there's like these obelisks on either side of the pool, maybe those visions were post-nuclear Hera Chicago. Are we seeing the past or could we be seeing the future? This is my big prediction. I'm going to make it now. I'm going to have my Ludo Bagman moment.
You're saying what she did in the dream affected the setup?
No, rather that the vision that he is describing of there being like everything's like obliterated.
Yeah.
And there's still those like things on either side of the pool. Maybe that's in the future and it's that location after Hera's rage goes off.
Oh, so you think wherever he's going is actually still intact, but it will get destroyed later?
Well, I don't know if it's where he's going. I thought that it was like, it's right there. It's that spot. So not like a future destination, but it's showing the consequences of what happens if Hera goes off.
So it's actually this thing in Chicago.
That's right.
Okay.
Which it's not actually that important.
But here's my follow-up question.
Yeah.
How did the surrounding redwood trees get to Chicago?
Look. We haven't met the other 4 demigods yet, maybe. And we don't know what their powers are. And maybe one of them has the ability to summon redwoods.
Cool. Because in my brain, it was always in California because he saw surrounding redwood trees.
Yeah, I mean, look. What's the worst power? Being able to suddenly apply makeup to your face or summoning redwoods?
I mean, summoning redwoods would be pretty cool. That'd be pretty cool. Yes. So we're seeing Gaia in here. It's creepy. It's interesting. And I think that's a perfect place to break for intermission. Ooh, ah. So if you are listening on the podcast, we're going to take a break for the Lost Hero. So let's all say goodbye to the podcast people.
Goodbye, podcast people.
Hello and welcome to the Lost Hero ASMR Mike edition again, because yes, I'm recording this one while the baby is asleep in the room adjacent to the closet where the Shubio is. The Shubio is a closet turned into a recording booth, and on the other side of the door is a sleeping baby, so I will be recording this at a lower volume as to not wake that baby. Hello, thank you for listening to the mid-roll break. We've got some updates with the podcast. First, you may have missed it if you don't follow the Newest Olympian on social media, but we recently did a stream of me and Steven, aka Streamin' Para, playing Hades 2, the video game. It's available for all TNO patrons, so if you join at any tier $5 and above at thenewestolympian.com/Patreon, you will be able to watch that stream. It was very fun. We played for about 2 hours or so. It was very fun and silly and goofy, and Kelly even made us pizza rolls halfway through like a good mom for kids playing video games. So that was very fun, and you can watch that over on the TNO Patreon. And also on the TNO Patreon, you can watch video versions of this episode as well as the upcoming, not yet released next episode of The Newest Olympian. So weeks ago, what is time? Time's a flat circle. I released the video versions of these two shows from tour, and you can go watch those on the Patreon. This one is now up on YouTube, but I gave early access to the folks over supporting on the Patreon. So if you want to watch the full video version of next week's episode, which basically means you can listen to the episode a week early, you can go and watch that by joining any TNO tier over at thenewestolympian.com/Patreon. Now, speaking of live shows, we also have some new live shows coming up and tickets released for them this past Friday. So in addition to the shows that we already had live, Berkeley, California on August 3rd, and Nashville, Tennessee on August 24th, and Atlanta, Georgia on August 25th, we have a whole new crop of shows going from September onward in New York City and Vienna, Virginia, which is close to Washington, D.C., Toronto, Ontario, Boston, Massachusetts, New Orleans, Louisiana, Dallas, Texas, and Philadelphia, aka Doylestown, Pennsylvania. You can get tickets to all of these shows at thenewestolympian.com/live. I would head on over and get those because some of them are already going quite quickly. So head on over, get some tickets, and have a very fun time. And if you are attending the Berkeley show coming up soon, I will be making a post on social media confirming what chapters I'll be covering. I will do that over on the TNO Instagram and Twitter, which are both at Newest Olympian. And I'll do the same for Nashville and Atlanta a couple days prior to the show. So that's where you can see what we'll be covering. But yes, tickets for all of these shows are live now. I'm really excited for the fall tour, and I hope to see you there. And at these live shows, we will be selling the new merch that I've alluded to previously that I'm working to get up on the merch store soon. But yeah, we've got a new poster, we've got new pins, and there's other stuff coming down the pipeline as well. I've been working with Kelly on new designs. So again, you can stay tuned for updates by following the Newest Olympian on Twitter and Instagram, or just making sure you always listen to these mid-roll breaks, because that's where I provide updates. Also on Patreon, when I do director's commentaries, I do those for a good chunk of the episodes, and I usually give a lot of merch-related updates. So if you really want to stay in the know, and I do merch preview pictures and stuff, if you really want to stay in the know about the merch stuff, go join the TNO Patreon. Now, speaking of that Patreon, I would like to give a shout out to everyone who supported the show on Patreon. That's very cool. It's very kind of you to do that because the podcast is free, so for you to go above and beyond is really cool, and I hope you enjoy the bonus content that you get access to for supporting. But I would also like to specifically give a shout out to the folks who've joined the Patreon most recently. So shout out to our newest God tier patrons, Anna Bartos and I Battle with Only a Spork. And shout out to Jessica Phillips, who recently upgraded to the producer level status, and Patreon didn't notify me, but they messaged me. So yeah, if you are in the situation where you've upgraded to any status, I don't get those notifications anymore. Also, if you used to be a Potterless patron and then you rejoin the TNO Patreon because it's still the same account, I don't get a notification as well. So you can always just shoot me a DM on Patreon, and then I will make sure that I give you your proper credit. So thank you very much for your support. May Apollo bless you that if you are ever performing any sort of live musical thing, that you are able to keep your breath. I ran into this, and I always run into this when I do the karaoke's at LeakyCon. I don't know how these people keep breath when they perform, like BTS and stuff when they're dancing and singing. That's nuts. I lose my breath like halfway through every time I do a karaoke song on stage and I'm trying to like actively perform it. So power to them and power to you. May Apollo bless you. Now, if you're all caught up on the newest Olympian and you're looking for some new content to consume, you are in luck because I make a whole bunch of content. I make a whole bunch of podcasts, and I think they're very good. I think you'd probably enjoy them. And one that I think is very good, a little change of pace, but still awesome, is Modern Muckraker. Modern Muckraker is a show where I worked with a team of writers and sound designers and composers and researchers. Alyssa Esteban was actually our researcher. And we created 4 episodes for our first season where it is a show that sounds like you're listening to a profound journalism podcast, like it would be from a reputable news organization, but the questions that we seek to answer are inherently silly, even though we treat them as serious, such as how many IHOP locations can you visit and eat free pancakes at during one National Free Pancake Day? So you can listen to that wherever you get your podcasts by searching for Modern Muckraker or by going to our website, modernmuck.com. Hi, it's Phone Mike. The baby started squirming, so I got distracted and forgot to record this part. But I'm here now to say that unless you're listening on Patreon where you get access to ad-free episodes, now you're going to hear words from a few sponsors to make it feasible for me to be a full-time podcaster. Some of those ads will be read by me, and others of them won't be. The ones that aren't read by me are inserted locally. So if you live in Greece, don't be surprised if you hear an ad in Greek. But once those ads are complete, we'll get back into this episode of The Newest Olympian.
Hope everyone had a good intermission. I missed you all so dearly. Let's get into the rest of this chapter. So, we looked at the weird art installation and stuff. Woohoo! Let's see what's up now. So, they are checking this out. Jason calls out to Leo, who sees what he's seeing. The screens go dark, the venti combine into a single funnel cloud, and then they go down a drain. Piper asks how they will follow them now. Leo says maybe we shouldn't follow them at all. The whole we're supposed to avoid the earth thing, let's just tap out. And he adds that the fountain is just giving off bad vibes. Jason feels similarly to Leo, but he knows that they must follow. So he instructs Leo to land Festus somewhere in the park and they will go and inspect on foot.
Great. While we're talking about funnel clouds, I need to amend a statement that I made. The logo I was thinking of was not for Roto-Rooter, it was for local plumbing company Beacon Plumbing. Wait. Stop freaking. Call Beacon. Thank you, Marshawn Lynch. Thank you, everyone in the crowd who just said call Beacon. Roto-Rooter is just a circle with some water in it. Boo.
I hope I don't get any emails in between that and the mid-roll break.
That was the only reason why I corrected it, is because I knew you were going to get tons of people being like, look, my dad's Mr. Roto-Rooter.
My father's Stephen Roto-Rooter. No. So, they're in Grant Park, which is where Lollapalooza happens, and Jason thinks that it must be a nice place in the summer, but it's frozen over now. And Leo knows that Festus just can't hang around here, otherwise he will get arrested for loitering. I feel like something else would happen to the giant dragon, right?
Impounded at the most. Arrested, good luck.
So instead what Leo does is he pulls a safety whistle out of his tool belt because a dog whistle was rejected as one of the recommended items from the tool belt. And he says that Coach Hedge would be jealous of this whistle and gives it to Festus, or doesn't give it to Festus. Festus eats it. Yeah. He plays it for Festus and then says, if you hear this noise, come get us, but otherwise you can fly around wherever you like. Now, Piper takes one step and then shrieks in pain. Jason guesses that the nectar is wearing off. Piper shrugs it off, but then she begins to shiver, and Jason remembers, oh, right, I promised to get her a new snowboarding jacket. I hope I live long enough to live up to that promise. And I'm so invested in this now. When he first brought it up, I was like, I hope they do that. I hope he doesn't forget. Now that it's come up twice, if he doesn't get her a snowboarding jacket by the end of the book, then she should go along with enchiladas and destroy the world.
Agreed.
Twice promised to Jack. Come on. So they approach the fountain, and the plaque reads Crown Fountain, and it is mostly empty, save for a few puddles that are starting to freeze over. But Jason finds it weird that any water would be there at all, given how cold it is. So he thinks that is strange, and then he also thinks about the monitors and the face and everything, and he's just thinking, everything's weird. Everything's strange. I don't like what's going on. He climbs down the maintenance hole, and he's surprised that it doesn't smell completely like butt. And then when Piper and Leo join, Piper asks if all sewers are this nice, and Leo says no, trust me. And I wrote, how does he know? And then immediately Jason asks, how do you know this? Leo clarifies, I ran away 6 times. I've slept in some weird places. And I think that would also explain him being concerned for the loitering offense. This tracks for, stuff he's run into previously.
Yeah, that makes sense. Though I do, on the loitering topic, real quick, he dismissed Festus. Where in Chicago do you think Festus went?
Oh, he probably caught a game at Wrigley.
I thought that was like a solid option, or he could just like sit on top of an L train and go in a circle for a while. Not loitering if you're moving.
Yeah. Look, if he did it above, it depends on it's the winter, right? So maybe football's going on, but he could be the Goodyear blimp. Like that, the mist, it would look like the Goodyear blimp.
Or like he's a mechanical thing made by humans, kind of. He could just go to the Art Institute and be an installation.
Yeah. And then Ferris Bueller walks by.
Yeah.
So then Jason says that they should go south because that's where a draft is blowing. Piper stumbles as she starts to walk, but then Jason catches her because The Lost Hero is a K-drama and I will die on this hill. Jason thinks that they should rest since they've been going nonstop for over a day. He asks Leo if he can pull any food from his belt besides mince, and Leo is very excited that he can take on his new role as Chef Leo. So he goes off to do so. That way, Jason and Piper can have a moment. So they rest a bit, Jason worrying about whoever lies ahead, Piper saying, look, whatever happened back at Monocle Motors is not your fault. Don't worry about it. And you shouldn't feel bad about being jumped, but Jason still feels silly for leaving her alone and walking into a trap, thought he should have known better, and he starts to say, I should have known, but then he realizes, and I imagine him just like saying it like this to her and then turning off to the middle distance and realizing, I should have known a lot of things. I don't know my last name. I don't know where I'm from. Why is my shirt purple? Who is that guy? Like, he just laundry lists all the things that he should know, and it just wrecks him. So he is also further confused by Hera saying that taking his memories kept him alive. He thinks that this information could be crucial in a battle and stuff. So he's very confused about what's going on. And then we get this quote at the end of this little Hera grumbling quote. He was starting to understand why Annabeth had wanted to leave the goddess in her cage. The Hera hate is great. It's fun.
Though, like, man, I keep on going back and forth, like, strongly between, like, oh, she's actually horrible. Like, I don't know if we're going to get the switcheroo.
No, I don't think she's going to be truly evil. There's too much of her. I think she might have done something bad. Like, I can see her doing I didn't factor in your thoughts kind of thing, like whatever this gamble is. Okay. It could be something where it's like she looked at it too objectively, but I don't think we're getting a situation where she's like, actually, Guy is my best friend and we're working together. I don't think that's going to happen.
Rick loves a switcheroo, though, and like we haven't had all that many yet in this book, so I feel like something's coming.
Well,
but maybe it's not that.
It might be coming at the end of this chapter.
Oh, so, fair enough.
Piper tells Jason to cut himself some slack. Jason is entranced by her eyes in the fire. Jason says he knows how much the whole missed fake boyfriend thing must suck. Piper says that's also not your fault. And then she tugs at her braids and Jason is all hubba hubba again because the Aphrodite blessing is faded. Quote, with the makeup and the dress and the perfect hair, she looked about 25, glamorous and completely out of his league. He never thought about beauty as a form of power, but that's the way Piper had seemed. Powerful. He liked regular Piper better. Someone he could hang out with. But the weird thing was, he couldn't quite get that other image out of his head. It hadn't been an illusion. That side of Piper was there too. She just did her best to hide it. And this is feeling a little bit too much like, you don't know you're beautiful, that's what makes you beautiful territory, and I'm not liking it.
Yep.
I'm enjoying when he is considerate of her. I think it's fine with the you don't have to put on the pretty girl stuff. But this is a little bit one step where I'm like, all right, dude. Like, kind of weird to be like, oh, she looked too hot and that was bad because I thought she was out of my league, so I'm not attracted to her anymore. I don't know. It feels weird.
Also, do we need to assign so much value to physical appearance? Mm-hmm. Some of us hunchback lumbering humanoids feel a certain way about the matter.
Jason brings up Piper almost saying something about her dad earlier, saying, oh yeah, you were going to say something about your dad before. Do you want to continue? And Piper's like, oh, no. So Jason goes, I'm assuming he's in trouble. And then we get this quote, over at the fire, Leo stirred some sizzling bell peppers and meat in a pan. Yeah, baby, almost there. Perfect.
I do think, though, that was the moment where they wrote that Piper traced out a scream on the wall, which I just think is like very funny. The idea of someone going, Just writing A's in perpetuity. A funny visual to me, but when brought up the dad.
Just perfect comedic timing of Leo to jump in at this moment. Piper says that she can't talk about it, and Jason says, we're your friends, of course you can. And Piper goes, I wish I could. And then, of course, Leo bursts in, again, exactly at the right moment, with the completed meal. It is pepper and beef tacos with chips and salsa. Piper and Jason are stunned. Leo responds, Chef Leo's Taco Garage is fixing you up. And by the way, it's tofu, not beef, beauty queen, so don't freak, just dig in. Leo, batting 1,000 in these chapters. Iconic move, and we need to get Chef Leo's Taco Garage, get that on an apron pronto.
Yeah, you know who would love those tacos? Grover. Not an enchilada, but
these two folks need to meet.
They do.
These boys need to hang out.
I mean, they are serving the same role in 2 different series, but they do need to meet.
Hang out.
Yeah.
Grover will make enchiladas. Leo will make tacos. They'll make a Mexican restaurant together. It will be fantastic. We get this quote next from narrator Jason. Jason wasn't sure about tofu. Of course not, because he's an American. I can't have tofu. It's gross. Not to put my dad on blast, but he does this every time I cook something with tofu, and then he eats it and it's delicious. And I'm like, yes, Dad, you can do it. Tofu to me is one of those things where like it directly correlates how good it is with how good the chef is. Like if you've had bad tofu, bad chef. Tofu tastes like nothing. So as long as you're flavoring your dish properly, it should be great. All it does is add texture and protein.
Yeah.
If you're messing up tofu,
and it's
pop on the Food Network, baby.
It's not hard. I made tofu katsu just the other night. I do also like in the dish, though, he said that it's the tacos, but with also chips and salsa. And I'm like, we know where he got that salsa from. He took the salsa from the case that the Cyclops brought over, put it in his tool belt. I bet that's Cyclops salsa.
It had to be good. If you're a Cyclops, it's got to be good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's got to be the good stuff.
Most likely. What other joys do they have in their lives?
Got to have the spicy food.
Just ragging on Alabamians and Cyclops.
Gonna get some 1-star reviews. Now, Jason, though he was not sure of the tofu, he notes that the tacos taste as good as they smell. Leo tries lightening the mood with jokes as they eat, and that makes Jason glad that Leo's here to ease the tension. However, he also wishes that he was alone with Piper. Hubba hubba. But then he feels bad for thinking that. Jason and Piper talk a little bit. Jason says that Piper should go to sleep. She does without protesting, and I was very excited. Ooh, dreams from Piper at the next chapter, but that's not what happens, unfortunately.
Yeah, I've also fallen asleep 2 seconds after eating tacos.
Oh yeah. So Jason and Leo are chatting a little bit, and then Jason asks if what Piper said about his fire powers are true. And Leo confirms by making a small ball of fire appear in his hand. Jason thinks it's awesome and wonders why he kept it hidden. Leo says, I didn't want to look like even more of a freak. And then Jason, in response to this, says, quote, I have lightning and wind powers. Piper can turn beautiful and charm people into giving her BMWs. You're no more a freak than we are. And hey, maybe you can fly too. Like jump off a building and yell flame on. And I feel like at this point in time, Disney, yes, was publishing the book, but they hadn't had the Marvel rights yet. So very funny that this is now like a very in-universe joke to make, that it could find its way into whatever adaptation comes through.
Actually, the Fantastic Four are owned by Fox, which is a separate...
Oh, you're right. And that's why all the movies are bad.
I do want to bring up, though, that it's a good thing that Piper was asleep when Jason said Piper can turn beautiful.
Ooh.
Think about your words before you use them, my friend. From plain as burlap to a beautiful woman.
Is that a quote from...
No, I just made that.
Okay, cool. I like it. But I don't know if that was like, I don't know, like when you take a glasses off someone in an 80s movie. So Leo laughs that if he did that, all you would see is a flaming kid falling to his doom, followed by shouting something spicier than flame on. Leo also brings up that Nyssa gave him the impression that the Hephaestus cabin does not like fire powers, and whenever a kid with those powers comes through, bad things happen. But Jason puts forth, maybe it's the opposite of the chicken and the egg. Maybe someone only comes through when things are bad, and they are needed most. I like this line of thinking from Jason. Leo says it's possible, but he states that his abilities are not always a gift, and Jason guesses, oh, are you referring to the night your mom passed? And Leo doesn't answer, but him not saying anything and not being jovial is enough of an answer. So Jason tries to convince Leo that her death was not his fault. He says that the Dirt Woman, I love that they've all embraced Dirt Woman as her official name. Says that the dirt woman, capital D, capital W, is trying to shake his confidence and make him feel like a failure when the truth is that he's important. But Leo says, she told me that. And I think that I'm going to be the make or break person in the prophecy. And I'm worried that I might not be up for the task. Jason has the urge to say everything's going to be okay. But he knows, I don't know that. That might not be true. I don't know anything. What's my last name again? All right, Derulo. So he also thinks demigod lives are too unpredictable and can end at any moment. So yeah, I can't predict anything at all. What am I going to do? Leo asks Jason if he ever wonders about the other 4 heroes. Jason definitely has, but he's done so in the sense that he's worried that he's going to have to lead them as well, and he's worried about that. And he's also worried about Beret saying that they will tear each other apart. And Jason knows that he was trained not to show fear, but he feels the pressure of being the leader of Leo and Piper and them depending on him. He's also concerned about that group growing and also maybe becoming contentious. He doesn't like the idea of what could be ahead of him here in this role. He finally tells Leo that he is unsure because this was all happening inside Jason's brain. I wonder for how long he was just like, yeah, I don't know, man. But he thinks that the other heroes will show up when they are needed, and he wonders if they're on a quest of their own. And I wonder if that's book 2. Wouldn't that be fun if we open up? Because I don't know the names of anyone else. So I don't know if the other 7 are like people we know or if it's new people. But like, let's say Rebecca is a new person, and chapter 1 just says, Rebecca, I will finally have my who the heck is Jason moment. Because what if the second book is just the other 4 doing something else? It could be anything.
I don't mean to jump to conclusions, but I'm like, it's Percy, Annabeth, Nico, and Talia. Like, it's gotta be. Like,
well, Thalia's with the hunters, though, right?
Well, but will she stay with the hunt? I know that she is contractually obligated.
Here's what I'm thinking. The reason why I think she'd be with them is because I agree, Nico, Percy, Annabeth for sure. I think there's one spot that's a question mark.
Okay.
I don't think it would be some of the other people because like right now, who's vying for the spot? Grover, Tyson, Thalia. You can't pick one over any of them, but they all have convenient outs. Grover's got the pan out, Tyson has the Cyclopes out, and Thalia has the hunters out. So I think there's another person. And the 2 options are either somebody new that we have not met yet, or like someone that we barely met, like Nissa, but I don't think that would be the case. The other option is somebody like Will Solace, who is like, we didn't really know, but he's back here a little bit more in this book, so maybe he comes in like, okay, I'm important this time, guys. That's my 2 thought. Like either someone we have no idea, or like Will, or like Jake. Or
Blackjack.
Don't get my hopes up. Now I'll be sad. But that's what I think. I think those are the other 3, but I don't think it's going to be Thalia, Grover, or Tyson.
I also, when he was having this like off into space thinking to himself, in my mind, it's not going to be Jason that leads. It's still going to be Percy that leads because it's still Percy's series. Maybe again, I'm making big predictions.
But the thing, and if it does end up being like a split thing of,
I hear you're whispering, by the way.
I don't know what they're saying, but there is whispering. But like, what if it? I only thought of this a couple of chapters ago when Bray said this would hurt. What if it's not Percy and Jason? What if it's Percy versus Jason? Like, what if there's a division? Right? What if it's Captain America Civil War?
Which one's Captain America? Which one's Iron Man?
Oh, I don't know. I don't want either of these boys to be weirdly simping for corporations / the government. If you rooted for Tony Stark, you're on the wrong side.
No, you're not. You're not wrong there. Maybe I missed something in a prior chapter.
Yeah.
But how did Jason know about Leo's mom in terms of the when he was just like, oh, was it fire that burned her alive?
Leo said that his mom died in a like warehouse tragic collapse and he was there, but he didn't say that he caused it. Jason just now put those things together.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's, I mean, I maybe would have been a little bit more tender about my approach to be like, oh, did you burn her?
Oh, is that why you didn't want to talk about it? You're responsible for your mother's death.
I don't know. It just, it came across as a little sudden.
Anyway, Jason tells Leo to rest. He offers to take the first watch. Jason guesses that about 4 hours had passed, and he's all right since he was knocked out on the dragon, so that's good sleep, so he's okay. And Jason does note that Piper is sleeping on Jason, and he thinks it's cute, and he's disappointed when she wakes up.
Also, real quick, you're not supposed to let people with concussions sleep.
Oh, right. So Jason should for sure be awake.
But yeah, they described, back to Piper sleeping. He's like, he says in the narration, she has a cute way of breathing. Mm-hmm. And in my head, I'm just going, you got it bad. In a sewer, watching a girl that's maybe your girlfriend breathe. Like, he's in a bad spot.
Yeah. So they break down camp, they head down the tunnel, and they go for a long time until they come upon polished steel elevator doors engraved with a cursive M. They see a directory next to it, so Piper wonders, is this Macy's? And Leo is afraid that it could be more Monocle Motors. But then Leo notices the directory is wonky. It says parking, kennels, main entrance, sewer level, furnishing and cafe M, 1, women's fashion and magical appliances, 2, menswear and weaponry, 3, cosmetics, potions, poisons, and sundries, 4. Piper wonders about the kennels and why they have a sewer level. Leo thinks poisons are suspicious and wonders what sundries are. Is it underwear? And I wrote, like undies? Come on. But sundries just means assorted various things.
Or it's a combination sundress and undies.
Correct. Oh my God. Quick, to the patent office. Jason says, when in doubt, start at the top. Is that a phrase? Is that anything? Has anyone ever said that ever?
It's not. I think you started at the bottom, then you're here.
Oh, no.
No, Drake.
We like Kendrick way more. We were talking about it earlier today. Don't let any...
Okay, start at the beginning. That's better.
Yeah, that's Mary Poppins, right? Or is that Sound of Music? Which one is the beginning's a very good place to start? Sound of Music.
Sound of Music.
Cool.
Okay.
Great. Yeah. There we are. Are those...
Sorry. I'm somewhere else.
Regardless, whatever happens, if it is Evil Mall will be fun. I'm excited for Evil Mall, but it's not Evil Mall yet. When the elevator reaches floor 4, Jason wields Fliptide and pops out the elevator, and he tells the other, you have to see this. And then Piper goes, this is not Macy's. And Leo goes, it's Dillard's. The description goes as follows. The department store looked like the inside of a kaleidoscope. We've all been inside a kaleidoscope before. The entire ceiling was a stained glass mosaic with astrological signs around a giant sun. The daylight streaming through it washed everything in 1,000 different colors. The upper floors made a ring of balconies around a huge central atrium so they could see all the way down to the ground floor. Gold railings glittered so brightly they were hard to look out. Super cool. Very fun. I want to see this in the K-drama adaptation. There's escalators that connect the floors, and on display are some normal clothes, but then there are also things that are more along the lines of like magical armor and stuff. So they look down and they see a fountain. There's a mini hurricane trapped in a cage, so they're thinking, oh, cool, someone trapped a wind spirit. But then Coach Hedge is frozen in another cage, and they go, not cool, that's our friend. Piper yells out for him and tells the boys, we gotta act now. And then a voice says, may I help you find something? Then we get this quote from narrator Jason. A woman had just appeared in front of them. She wore an elegant black dress with diamond jewelry, and she looked like a retired fashion model, maybe 50 years old, though it was hard for Jason to judge. Her long dark hair swept over one shoulder, and her face was gorgeous in that surreal supermodel way, thin and haughty and cold, not quite human. With their long, red-painted nails, her fingers looked more like talons. So... interesting. I think this is the perfect description of this person is either cool and our friend, or she's about to attack us. And it left me perfectly on the edge of my seat.
Yeah. To me, I'm like definitely evil, bad, very bad.
See, I think it could go either way. Like the talons thing is like, okay, they'll either become literal talons or she just has great nails.
Sure. She calls herself the princess of Colchis or Colchis.
Yeah. So we get that Leo passes the buck to Jason to talk to her, who asks if this is her store. She says yes. She says she originally found it abandoned, but thought it would be a good opportunity to collect and sell items here to those who need it in this country, saying, as if she wanted to start a thing here. Jason then, as the narrator, is like, oh yeah, she was speaking with an accent that I couldn't quite peg. So he asks, are you new to America? And she says yes. She is the Princess of Colchis. I'm guessing like the Colchis Bulls. The Princess of Colchis, and her friends call her Your Highness, which that feels untrue. Oh yeah, no, my name's Mike, but my friends call me Sir.
Yeah, that doesn't really give off lots of good guy energy.
That's true. But we did just have like an evil Your Highness with the Ice Princess, so I just felt like back-to-back evil princesses felt weird.
But it kind of seems like that's the theme of this entire book.
Oh, evil princesses.
In the first, it was a lot of really horrible men for the most part. And now it's turnabout's fair game.
Equality. Oh, that's funny. So she asks what they are looking for, and Jason is swooning at her voice. And now I was getting a little more worried because that's never a good sign. Piper nudges him, and he says that they want to save their friend from the cage. She says, of course, but then asks their names. And I just wrote, lie, 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 lie. Jason gets an instinct to not reveal his name. He feels like it's an intentionally only semi-fuzzy thing from Hera, one of those, you know that you should do this thing, but not why you should do this thing. But then Jason thinks, she seems so friendly, and maybe we'll be able to avoid a fight if we just kind of like go along with her and stuff. So how about I tell you her name before Piper can successfully protest? Though in her protest, she goes, Jason, I don't think we should. What are you doing? If the whole thing was don't tell him, was your sentence, finish your sentence, Piper. Were you going to say, Jason, I don't think we should tell her our names? Like, call him a fake name. Give him a fake name.
Yeah. Has she never seen a heist movie where someone accidentally lets one of their names slip and then everything goes sideways?
But it doesn't even matter because Jason introduces all of them. So all of their names have been given. And then we get this wild ending. And I'm just going to read the quote from the book because it's funky. The princess fixed her eyes on him, and just for a moment, her face literally glowed, blazing with so much anger, Jason could see her skull beneath her skin. Jason's mind was getting blurrier, but he knew something didn't seem right. Then the moment passed, and her highness looked like a normal, elegant woman again, with a cordial smile and a soothing voice. Jason, what an interesting name. That felt more evil. She said, her eyes as cold as the Chicago wind, I think we'll have to make a special deal for you. Come, children, let's go shopping. By this point, I was thinking, I don't like the vibes of this anymore.
The fact that she hears Jason and then suddenly looks like Ghost Rider, which Ghost Rider is also a property of Fox, so it's not
it's not a crossover.
Yeah, it's not a crossover. But so, okay, like obviously like that's a big deal. And I'm like, when I'm reading this, like I'm like, it's exciting. New things are happening. I'm reading through it rapidly and all these things are going on in my head. Why is the name so like making her so upset? How is it that she looks like her head is on fire? In my mind, I'm like, whoever she is, it's her name that starts with M because she wouldn't give us her name. So it's clearly like a cliffhanger from Rick. Yeah. And so then I'm like running through my head of just like, we already had a what, like House of M was Medusa and like the
Auntie
first
M's Garden Emporium. Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, okay, what's left M wise? Maelstrom, Maleficent, Maya Rudolph, Mama Cass. But I could not pull the Greek or potentially Roman mythology M name that she's playing, but it's got to be one of them.
This felt like if I knew the story of Jason and the Argonauts, because specifically since she was annoyed by the name, it feels like someone that Jason and the Argonauts faced in Jason and the Argonauts, but I don't know that well enough because I think we only watched clips of that movie in my high school Latin class. But I don't know it. If I knew the myth, I would know it. So now I am just in the dark, so I don't know, but that's the end of the chapter. Ooh. So I had titled this chapter, We Shop at the Sewer Level. Just felt like a fun one of those. You open the chapter title, you're like, what is like? Because the chapter begins, I think like they haven't even gotten to Chicago yet, so you just be like, okay. So that was my thought. Did you have a?
Mine was I almost accidentally lose my coin sword by flipping it in a sewer.
Did he almost drop it or?
He didn't, but like it's not riptide. It doesn't just come back to him so far as we know, right?
Oh, right. Yeah, no, it's
and
not.
Dude's just, he's in a sewer, just like ho-hum playing with it.
That? Was he casually just flipping the coin
yes,
for fun?
He was casually playing with the coin, and I'm just like, okay, goodbye to your weapon.
Oh my gosh, you get Jason.
Even if he drops it, who even wants to go looking for it? Like,
gotta be more careful of Fliptide, Jason.
That's how you get pink eye.
Well, that is the end of this chapter. That is the end of this episode for now. If you're listening, we're going to take a quick ad break and then we'll get back into the Q&A. Hey
everyone, Phone Mike again. I also forgot to record this part because the baby started squirming and stuff and I just lost all track of time. But just popping in to let you know that we're going to take another one of those pauses for some ads. Some of them will be right by me and others of them won't be. And once the ads are complete, we will get into the very fun Q&A from this live show. This Q&A goes over a whole bunch of stuff. There's life advice, there's silly things, there's an intense discussion of potatoes. You're going to want to check it out. But anyway, once the ads are complete, you can hear that Q&A portion.
So, a lot of folks sent in questions, so we will not be able to get to all of these, but let's get to as many as we can because they are fun. Here's his first one, very important from Andy. Hi, Mike. As a Rae Jepsen fan, welcome to the club. We're so glad you've come. What is your favorite song? When I Needed You. So good. It's the best. It is really good. It's not a very popular one. That's why 2 people clapped. But I first heard it because they did a Song Exploder episode about it, and it's really, really good. And I was crushed to learn the hard way that it is not one of her more popular songs, because we were waiting for Rae Jepsen at Lollapalooza, and I was like, wow, I really hope she does my favorite song, When I Needed You. And then I looked up like top Rae Jepsen tracks to see like what she might play in her 45-minute set, and it was not on any top list at all. And I was like, she's not gonna play my favorite song. Oh no! But I really liked it. Do you have a favorite Rae Jepsen song?
Warm Blood.
Ooh, good.
Yeah.
Then we can both answer this one as well. How do you feel about her latest album?
Oh, I feel like I listened to all of the cavalcade of female pop albums that came out this year, but I don't know if it came out this year. I haven't listened to it yet.
2023, The Loveliest Time, in response to 2022's The Loneliest Time. It's good.
A real folklore Evermore situation.
Well, I mean, literally, it's like the album covers is like one of her from behind and one from the front. Like it was very much like a planned like double album kind of thing. But there's some good ones. Psychedelic Switch is really fun, and she did it at the live performance I saw. It's a good album. It's very fun. So I would do it. Also, Shy Boy was another good one off that album. It's a good one. I would highly recommend. Rae Jepsen's not sponsoring the show. God, I wish she was. I wish she was. All right, this one is from Rachel. Subject line, chilling in the 206. Is that the area code here?
It is. You should know that.
I don't feel like not enough Seattle rappers are talking about the area codes here. I never changed my phone. I've kept my New Jersey phone number since I was 14, 12. Yeah, still going strong. I've had the same phone number for 20 years. My phone number can also almost buy a beer.
I can't be too critical. I'm a 360 boy, so.
So chilling in the 206.
Oh, what was that judgmental groan? First of all, the 360 wraps from Vancouver to Blaine, so you don't know which part of the state I'm from. What are you, a 425er? Get out of here.
Yes. I was saying on the right over here, I love things in the podcast when like 98% of the audience is like, what is happening? But 2% is locked in.
Also, careful listeners will have heard me say Ferndale Golden Lions earlier, so you can do the math.
So this one's from Rachel. What is a song you would love to see in a future season of the PJO series, and what book/scene would go with it? Yeah, I know. It's a tough one.
Man.
It's a tough one.
I
want to see, what's the police song where they start with this Scylla and Charybdis? There's a Sting song where it's like, is it You'll Be Wrapped Around My Finger or something? Hold on. I'll Google it as I think about this.
Okay, while you're doing that, I'm going to say from the scene when Mount St. Helens explodes, because needle drops in that show are very literal, so it's going to be Eruption by Van Halen.
Yeah, it's good. In Wrapped Around Your Finger, there's a line where they talk about Scylla and Charybdis. It would be funny if they put that into season 2.
It would.
Just to get that reference in the mix. Okay, this next one is from Liza and Charlie. Hi, Mick. So cool to see you at a live show. It's my first time attending one. I wanted to ask you if you've been playing Hades 2. Yeah. And who is your favorite new god/goddess because of boons and/or character design? Thanks. Hera is fun. Hera's very fun. New addition to the game, so that's exciting. And her powers are quite good. But then, God, I still love Poseidon. He's so good. Probably my favorite character in the first game. And he's really, because he's just like your fun drunk uncle in Hades, the video game. And in the sequel, he has this one power up. I think it's called Double Up, where anytime you're picking something that isn't a boon. Have you played this or is this new to you?
I've played the first game a lot. Yeah, we've talked about it.
Yeah,
just not the second one.
The second one, yeah. So they have the thing, I think it's called Double Up, but like when you get a certain power up that isn't like one of the super strong ones, you have like a certain percentage chance of getting 2 of it. So if you're getting like more life, instead of getting plus 25, you would get plus 50. But what happens is you just like pick up the item, and then if the thing triggers, another one appears, and Poseidon's voice from the distance goes, "Ha ha, yes!" And there's like 12 different ones. So it'll either be like, "Ha ha," or "yes," or "ah." Like there's just like a rotating
affirmative.
Yeah, like,
you did it.
It's so funny because
sea power.
It's just such a good surprise because you don't know if it's going to happen, and then you don't know which of the things he's going to say. It's so good. Like sometimes it's not strategically the best thing for me to take in the game, but I almost always pick it because the vibes are just too good. They're too good.
I think the ending on that was really great in terms of like letting us know the vocal deliveries, but in the middle of that, I was getting real. So a magic missile is a projectile, and you can't use it against on a melee weapon. And I was like,
but I definitely could have simplified it, but I like that game too much. I like it too much. Okay, this one is from Lucy. Lucy says, hi, Mike, I'm from Cincinnati, Ohio, and I'm so happy to be seeing your show today. It's well established that Tino is a pro pigeon podcast. So I was wondering if you have thoughts on the pigeon yoga pose. Yes, so I did it once during a show. It's like, don't you like, isn't it one of these where you're like, isn't it like this and like that and like leaning, right? I do my arm with something? My leg's like down, right? Yeah, okay, these pants are a little too tight. And I don't want to stretch them out before LeakyCon. But no, it's an intense pose. I remember it being more intense, but I liked it, and it's fun and cool. And it was a trickier one. It's not like one of the ones like Child's Pose, which is like, just lay on the ground. Those are my favorite yoga poses. But I did like pigeon pose. I like that it was elaborate. I thought it was fun. Okay, this one is from, is it Celicia? Is that how I pronounce it? Okay, so Celicia says, welcome back to Seattle. We get introduced to Chef Leo's Taco Garage. What would the names of the restaurants of the other characters in PJO and HOO be? So if other people are opening up shop, what do we get? I would say like Grover would do something with like a pan pun, like pandemonium enchiladas or something like.
Or hooves in the kitchen? I'm in the kitchen.
Good. I feel like Annabeth would make a really boring name. It would just be like really, just like something very like straight down the line. Tyson's would just be like peanut butter with an exclamation point. And it's just a place where you can make various peanut butter sandwiches.
Sure.
Percy, I feel like he would open up like... I know seafood is the thought, but he just feels like a dessert shop guy. Like maybe like there's like a cookie ice cream sandwich place, like Cream in the Bay Area, like one of those kind of things.
Sure.
You could have something like that. Any other restaurants of our main characters come into mind? Jason would just have like hot dogs, hamburgers, chicken legs, pizza.
Beckendorf's pull apart monkey bread.
All right. Okay.
I don't know. Or it's just pan and all they sell is bread.
Very good. Very good. Very good.
It's pronounced pan.
This one is from Theseus. Theseus says, hey, Mike, longtime fan here. So excited you're in Seattle, and I'm finally 21. Yes, I wish I had more control over places where I could perform in younger things, so I'm glad I've performed in Seattle 4 times now, and Theseus is finally old enough to attend.
Also, Theseus, now that you're 21, the way that your cells work is you're born with a certain set of cells, and they all get replaced over time, and now you're Theseus today. But are you the original Theseus that you were to begin with?
Good ship joke. Good ship joke. Yes. All right. So the first question is, who's your favorite god in Hades 2 and why is it Hestia? Hestia is fun because you get burn powers now, which is cool. But we've answered that. Number 2, I just moved to Seattle. If you could tell your post-college Seattle self one piece of advice, what would that be? So we can both do it as someone who just like moved here, lived for 2 years, and then said bye, or someone who's born and raised in the area code that one person in the crowd took major offense to. I would say, specifically, I moved here in September. And then I was here for the record-breaking no sunlight days, which will never be beaten because it was 31 straight days of not the sun. So I would just say, capitalize on the sun is out when the sun is out, if you haven't done that. But like, I don't know. I think for me what was helpful is just I made a couple of friends just with some sort of extracurriculars, and then that like really helped blossom. I know that there's the whole thing about the Seattle freeze. I think it's BS. I never felt that vibe. I just feel like if you get a core group of friends, there's enough like group activity things in Seattle where you can keep meeting new friends. So like I only knew the people that I did improv with initially, and then some other people from Miss University who lived here. But then little by little it was like, oh, let's like go on a hike together. And then here's some new person you've just met. And then it's like, oh, let's, go to Gasworks Park. And then here's this new person you just met. And then I have all these like weird, like tangential jump friends where it's like, oh, well, he was friends with Sophia, who I met hiking with Ricky, and like blah, blah, blah. So I would just say like, get out there, do some stuff, and then just enjoy the group activities that Seattle provides, whatever you enjoy, whether that's going out and hiking or like going to all the cool pinball bars here. Like there's enough to do for everyone. Go to a Storm game, whatever.
Yeah. For me, I would say if you find cheap rent, sit on it. Go to a neighborhood you've never been to and just walk around that neighborhood and check it out because there's so many parts of Seattle you've never seen or been to before. And don't become a Mariners fan. Speaking as a Mariners fan, I could tell you why at great length.
Okay, this one is from Lillian, my friend Lillian, who went to college with me. Lillian, where are you? Hi, hello. Hello, thank you so much for coming to the show. All right, so Lillian says, hey, Mike, so fun to see you record live. Here's my question. I'm a career coach at a local university. I work with students and alumni who are sometimes afraid to pursue the things that are most interesting to them because they feel they don't have the skills or there's a more established path that they should pursue. As an engineer turned podcaster, what's your advice for students struggling with these pressures? My biggest thing would be just like trying to let people feel like you don't have to be defined by whatever either you're studying in school or whatever your first job is or whatever. Like, don't let that define you. I hate that like the default question in life is, what do you do for work? I try to ask people, what do you do for fun? Because that's way more fun. And like some people love their jobs. Mine's pretty good. But a lot of times we're like, if you ask someone what's their job and they don't like their job, like that's just, oh, cool. Let's start the conversation with you talking about something you don't like. But I think I had a good mindset because engineering was like never the goal for me. I did it just because I was good at math and science and I knew I could get a job that would pay well. And eventually I could make a leap into doing something creative. So I never associated myself with what I was studying in school, what my job was for the first 4 years of my life. And I think that helped me put more of my time and effort into the things that I actually cared about. Improv in Seattle, doing the podcast, like comedic efforts. I think it was all just kind of like where my head was at and not being worried about labels and definitions and like what people think of you, but instead just focusing on like what you actually like and what you want to do.
Yeah. I would very briefly add, don't ignore when people tell you, especially in a professional setting, what your strengths are. Because oftentimes those strengths come from those creative things that are associated with you. For example, I taught a 8-week improv course at Microsoft on their campus to people who were not performers in any capacity whatsoever. And they loved it. And afterwards, the guy was just like, you're really great at this. You're a really good teacher. You should work here. And I was like, I don't have anything you'd hire me for here. When a guy basically just said, you could work here. And it took me a good solid like 8 years to finally be like, oh, I could do a corporate job with the skills that I have, even though I'm a theater major. So like, don't ignore that when people give you those compliments and people point out your strengths. If it's not immediately obvious to you how that translates, think about it. Dwell on that. Ask them more questions because they usually want to help you.
And then I would say specifically like with anything, especially creative stuff, like just try a lot of things and then just do the ones that feel the best to you. Don't do the thing that you think you should be doing. Like I know intentionally TikTok wasn't going to be a good place for me to put my brain space, so I never touched it. Like it's just certain that I liked podcasting more than YouTube videos and the other stuff that I was doing. Like find the thing you like and do it because you like it, not because you think it will be the launching point or you think it will be the most profitable, because then it doesn't become a fun outlet, it becomes a chore, and then you won't actually do it because it feels like a job and not a release from whatever you're doing that you don't enjoy as much or whatever. Yeah. Lillian ends up by saying, yay, also Jones wins again, NHFH, but you don't have to say this out loud. Yes, I do. I love Hansen and Jones. They're great. And all the Rice University people will be like, woo. And 99% of the audience will be like, what's going on? But we'll continue to future questions. Okay. This one is from Erica. Erica says, hi, Mike. Love the show. Great to see you in the PNW. I'm a teacher from Idaho, and my Monday morning commutes to school are made more bearable with your new weekly episodes. My question is, if you had to assign a Harry Potter house to all of our new friends that we've met in The Lost Hero, who would you place in each house? So yes, I have not answered these. And then travel safely to and from your other shows coming up. And congrats to you and Kelly on the new addition to your family. Thank you. That's very kind of you. So yeah, we got to put Leo, Jason, and Piper into a Harry Potter house. What are we doing? Jason, Gryffindor. He's the main character. America!
I wish we could get more creative than that, but
No.
it just is what it is.
Leo feels like Hufflepuff. He loves food.
Yeah, because he's Grover again.
Yeah, and then
Grover was Hufflepuff.
Piper's tricky. Maybe Slytherin.
Maybe.
Because of the whole, like, you know, do I do the selfish thing? At least where she currently is.
Yeah.
I could kind of say Slytherin. So.
And whether intentional or not, manipulative.
I like it. Yeah. Cool.
But she can't always help that, though.
No, she can't. Yeah. But neither could Draco. Yes, he could. Okay, this one is from Bridget. Bridget says, hello. 1, since the Cyclops bar is right across the street from here, would Jason or any demigod eat there? No. 2, that's like 2 on the nose. We were talking earlier about how like Monocle Motors is like kinda, but like I can kind of forgive them for not getting it. Like usually monocles are used by people with 2 eyes, so I understand. But if the bar was just called Cyclops Bar, you shouldn't go in, demigods. You really shouldn't.
It is a remarkably similar sign to the Monocle Motors. Yeah. Very
Number
similar.
2, and this is a very important question. What's your favorite kind of potato? My answer is sweet potato. I have sweet potatoes. I know, right? I know. Sweet potato is my choice. I have sweet potatoes every single morning. I make eggs with spinach in them and sweet potatoes with tahini in a skillet. I make that for Kelly and I every day.
What the fuck just happened? They didn't ask what kind of potato, as if a sweet potato is an option compared to a potato.
Wait.
Shub, sweet potato is not the answer. It's a potato, but how do you make it?
Is that? Is that? What?
Well, let's get some clarification. Hold on. Because in my mind, I'm like, we're not bringing sweet potatoes into the conversation. It's a yam. It's a different food altogether. Whoever asked it, were you talking about form of potato or type of potato?
Form.
Real ones know, Shubes.
I stand by my answer of sweet.
Shoestring, tater tot, curly fry, waffle fry, hash brown, puck.
Can I pick my breakfast skillet potatoes that I make? Because I've made them with regular potatoes as well.
As long as it's not a sweet potato, then yes.
Sure. I've done it with. I have done it with conventional potatoes, russet potatoes.
Is it like chunks cut up?
So basically, here's what you do. Great breakfast hack. Everyone should do it. So you take a potato, you like dice it up into like little tiny cubes, get a bowl, rinse it, and like get out the starch like 2 or 3 times. It helps with the consistency and the texture. Put it in the microwave for 3 minutes to get them a little soft. While they're in the microwave for 3 minutes, you heat up your skillet with some oil. I usually use olive oil. Put them in, mix them up, and then take tahini, which is a very good spice if you're unfamiliar with it. Sprinkle that on top, stir it around. Once they start to like get crispy on the outside, you're good to go. You have that with eggs, kaboom. Super good, works with any type of potato.
Sure. I'm a patatas bravas man. If you've ever been to Spain, just like cut up, lightly fried, kind of fried, but like just crispy on the outside. There's something about it with the sauce. It's just like perfect. However, the best French fries I've had in Seattle are at Houndstooth Bar on like 87th and Greenwood. They do that like battered fry where it's like crispier than it should be. The chicken bacon ranch. Get the chicken bacon ranch sandwich and those fries, and you will be somewhere else entirely. You will be transported. But those are like my second favorite. I have strong feelings about potatoes.
I'm good. Look, I was very excited to get a potato question. I was super stoked about getting one, and I can't think of a better way to end the Q&A section of the show. So that is the conclusion of the TNO Live show. Thank you all so much for coming out. I really appreciate it. Give yourselves a round of applause for making it out to the show and packing the house. Give it up again to Nathan for being our incredible guest for those 2 acts. Give it up to Abby for helping out running the merch table. You can still get merch on the way out if you so desire. And shout out to all the folks here at Here After. They just run such a wonderful show here, and it's always a delight. It is so nice to be coming back here again and again and again. So give it up to the whole team running the show here and making it a possibility. I very, very much appreciate it. Dylan has been a wonderful person to work with, so this is all a good time. Thank you all so much. I really do appreciate it. And I think that is it. So the only thing left to say besides, thank you is until we cross paths again whenever I find my way back to Seattle, because I find an excuse to come here every year, and I absolutely love it. So until I find my way back, I'll just have to say, I'll see you later. Thanks so much for coming out, everybody.
Hello, thank you so much for listening to this episode of The Newest Olympian. This podcast is created, hosted, and produced by me, Mike Schubert. I also run the social media and the website. Our editor is Sherry Guo. The music is by Bettina Campamanes and Brandon Google, and the art is by Jessica E. Boyd. If you can't get enough of the podcast, you can get involved in a couple of different ways. First, you can support us on Patreon, where you get bonus content. You can go to thenewestolympian.com/Patreon. You can also find us on social media. We're at Newest Olympian on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. You can go to our website, thenewestolympian.com, to learn more about the show. You can check out live shows that we've got coming near you at thenewestolympian.com/live. You can check out our merch page at thenewestolympian.com/merch. That's also where the TNO coffee lives. And for community stuff, we have a subreddit where you can chat with folks, reddit.com/r/thenewestolympian. And we also have the Discord, which is accessible to all folks on Patreon. Speaking of the Patreon, I want to give a shout out to our folks producing at the highest tier, our producer level patrons. Shout out to Kelsey Gillespie, the Damn Steam Nuggets, Vicky Garcia, Veronica Bartova, Frida Vikstrom, Megan Moon, Craig McRoberts, Taylor Payne, Sabrina Balsiger, Boney Pony, Polly Burridge, Nikki Harris, Tatiana Schmidt, Sandra Rose, Josh Josh Sayer, Josh Wilkie, Abby Ryan, Ashton Gabrielson, Marco Redhouse, Sam Reedy, Riley Kiddes, Mrs. O'Leary, Milo Kim, Sandkopf, Julia Kendall, Rike, John Drillsma, Rayla Matthews, Sky Mallory, Persasabeth, Aiden Parziani, King Bastion, One Damn Distraction coming up, Ginger Spursboy, A Cup of Solace, Meg Roy, Radimus Prime, Skylar Sisters, Scott Sheldon, Sophie, Natanya Page, Ann M. Thayer Cohen, Finley McLeod, Sarah Elise Arnson, Bella, Hayden Neal, Percy Jackson, Han Haley Hingelheimer Schmidt, Catherine Sloan, and Jessica Phillips. If you want to help out the show in a non-monetary way, word of mouth helps the show so much. Whether you post about the show on social media or you reach out to someone directly, someone who you know is a big Percy Jackson fan, or someone you've been trying to convince to get into the Percy Jackson books, saying, hey, there's this podcast. It's called The New Olympian. It's really good. You should check it out. Also, you could leave the show a rating and review on whatever podcasting app you're using. Whatever you do to spread the word of the show really does help. I'm appreciative to anyone who has done it in the past, and I'm appreciative to anyone who will do it in the future. But I'm just so thankful that you tuned into this episode, and I hope you tune into our next episode where we'll be joined once again by Nathan Cox, but this time we will be discussing chapters 27 and 28 of The Lost Hero live from the show we did in Vancouver, British Columbia. But until then, I'll pursue you later. Hey, how's it going? It's me, ASMR Mike. I've been here the whole time, but we're got to do another ASMR Mike segment. So because of the situation with me recording with the baby outside, I've got the baby monitor here in the Shubio, and things are going okay. She's squirming a little bit, but I will click around some of the buttons on here for the ASMR Mike segment. This is me turning up and down the brightness on the monitor. And then this is me zooming in and out on the baby's face. Thank you so much for listening.